Can you hear me okay? Yeah, perfect. So Adam Wright, I'm here to talk about aligning sales and marketing from a little different from what you've had earlier this morning, which is coming more from the marketing side and how we can better utilize marketing to drive sales growth. Because it's from the marketing side, I'm assuming that's why I'm post-lunch, Jordan. Yeah. Okay, so let's get straight into it. We've got 30 minutes. So give you probably a bit of context on who I work for, so you can then apply that to your use case as well. So I work for a company called Emerson. We operate in a kind of automating industrial process industry, so oil and gas, mining, petrochemicals, chemical, food and beverage, industries like that. We're providing the kind of systems and the instrumentation and valves and things to allow those to run and automate those plants. It's a highly matrixed organization, so to bear that in mind as well. We're a relatively large organization, around 90,000 employees. On the right here, I've kind of labeled out roughly to show the complexity across sales and marketing. We have sales and marketing teams that focus on the platform level globally for the world area, different world areas, for the different countries and different industries. You have that as well for each business unit. There's 7 business units, and then there's sub-business units within that at all those different levels as well. So when you're trying to create change, like we're trying to do within sales enablement at Emerson, you've got to try and influence all of those people, right? Because if you're just creating a new process or implementing a new tool, it doesn't make any difference unless people are actually using it, right? And you've communicated it properly and you've driven the change. So it becomes very complex with a large organization like this. So I'm going to try and talk to you today around how we're overcoming that. So some of the things that we've heard in the past, where we've come from, the blue is kind of a sales quote and orange is a marketing quote, if you will. I have definitely experienced the bottom piece. If not, I've kind of said something similar in the past, right? But I'm sure, I mean, how many people in the room have heard similar kind of things in the past, yeah? You know, we've all had that. We want to try and break away from it because it's not a great place to be honest. And it's not success, right? The number of campaigns you do, it just creates noise. Again, it doesn't help the sales organization whatsoever. So that's where we came from, really. And sales guys didn't really take notice because they're just working on this, focusing on their sales growth programs. So where are we today? We're getting a little bit closer, right? We're not in a perfect state, but our marketing teams are trying to align with our sales growth programs, right? We're starting the conversations. We're aligning our objectives with our sales programs. There are a few that slip through the net. In that matrixed organization, you're not going to hit everyone straight away, right? So, but we're getting there. So there's some good progress being made, and our the teams are using the sales guys are allocating their sales targets and making them aware to our marketing teams. So then we can align marketing objectives to those sales targets and try and support sales rather than marketing working in their own little silo. Okay. And the next step for us, we really want to get to a place where we are driving kind of predictable revenue generation. So from a marketing perspective as well. So we're really using our marketing funnel to support our sales funnel. So sales can do better predictive forecasting using our marketing information and the programs that we drive in marketing also. Okay, we're getting closer. And also marketing is not just saying, all right, next campaign. We've sent the email out, great, let's do the next thing, right? And I'm sure some of you can relate to that. Now let's not focus on the next thing until we've really supported sales on hitting that growth target that they said they wanted in this region, right? We're not going to help sales by doing something different if we haven't yet helped them achieve their sales targets. We should just keep optimizing until we help them get there. Okay, so that's where we want to really get to. These are some of the things that push the button. Some of the challenges that we've faced, okay, and still facing, to be honest, is the alignment on those priority programs. Being able, the efficiency of our marketing, that's the key point here really. Is we have a lot of marketing resources in Emerson, as I showed earlier, but what we're really not doing is using them effectively to support marketing. There was a great quote earlier on the presentation before of, let's not spend any money on advertising, let's focus on our compensation, updating our compensation. That makes sense. But also, you've got these marketing resources. Unless you're going to fire all of them, you may as well make them more efficient, more effective, so that it supports sales growth as well. Okay, so there's a different dynamic to it. It's just the marketing teams are being inefficient. So, and I think that's down to, in Emerson specifically, it's down to lack of processes and governance around those processes. And what I've seen is that also drives a lack of accountability So our marketing teams think their job is done when they've hit launch of their campaign, for example, but it's not. It's when sales and marketing have hit that growth target, right? So we want to help the teams get to that point. And then we also noticed that our contacts database was a bit of a mess, okay? And no one was taking responsibility for it. So that was just a little bonus thing that got thrown into sales enablement as well for us, just because it was such an important element and it was hard to take ownership and to drive that clean database so that marketing can be more relevant to the customers, right? So this is when sales enablement was actually born, because our customer was suffering. Okay, they were getting inconsistent messaging and irrelevant messaging, and because of the lack of alignment to sales, we had really slow response times. The processes weren't there to support lead management. They weren't the right leads for our sales organization, okay, because marketing were working on something slightly different. So based on all of these challenges, sales enablement was born, and that was about 1.5 years ago. And what I want to talk to you today is, what have we done in that 1.5 years to get there? And if there's time at the end, I'll tell you the story about how did we actually get sales enablement in place, because there was an interesting way that we positioned it with leadership in order to get the resources together and to build that function out. Okay, so in sales enablement within Emerson, it's not about compensation or sales training. At the moment, it may expand in that way in the future, but it's more around better utilizing marketing and digital operations to drive sales growth. Okay, and I think that's a really important factor to understand. So, the conversations earlier are really relevant, and we use a company called Serious Decisions to help us with some of our consultancy support, and they don't see sales enablement as we see it. It's kind of a rough edge to it, but this is where we want to focus our time at the moment. And the central statement here is really what we're focusing on: those processes and technology, aligning the right people, making sure we're driving and capturing demand through our marketing and digital operations, because that's what's going to really help drive sales growth. And my background, just so is all marketing and some sales when I first started work, but it's more marketing focused. I'm a chartered marketer and marketing education. So and all my experience in Emerson and previous companies has been mostly marketing sided. So that's kind of driven this as well, where we can really understand how we can add value to the sales organization. Okay, so I've also sat through a few of these presentations in the past, and I've sat there thinking, yeah, nice one. That's not going to help me. That's too pie in the sky stuff. So I really wanted to make clear what I've tried to do in this slide deck and the slides coming forward is really make some tangible inputs that you can take away. And if you want to kind of go down this path, you can use them as some steps. I've got 5 steps in here to help you deploy this in your organization. And all of the screenshots, everything I've put in here is all based on what I do with my team in an Emerson every day. That's part of our strategy slides, it's our operational slides, our actual dashboard. So you can start to see, these are actual things that we are doing today, okay? So you can take it forward. And I wanted to put a unicorn in there for my daughter. That was it, so. Which she'll be happy about. So first step that we did in Emerson was building this platform for alignment, communication, and execution. So this comes in the sense to start with of this building this steering team. We created this global sales enablement steering team that I lead. We'd never had sales enablement in the past, and we knew that it was going to have some very difficult conversations because we're going to be talking to the marketing organization and saying, stop doing what you're doing, it's not working, and change. And then sales, you need to also change what you're doing a little bit and start taking note of marketing and using those resources more. It's going to be very difficult. So we've built this platform in Emerson to really help drive those changes and get alignment between sales and marketing. So this is the actual structure that we have in the organization. We have the sales enablement steering team here, and then these report up into our global digital council, global sales office team, and global marketing leadership team. We have lots of teams in Emerson, but it's a global, large organization, so it needs to have that governance level in place. Within the sales enablement steering team, we have these representatives from sales and marketing. So the sales leaders and the marketing leaders for every world area and business unit globally. That means there's a lot of people, but it's also necessary if you want to drive that change out and get consensus. Within the sales enablement steering team, we've then created some sub-functional teams that can also make decisions themselves, own projects to drive change. Most likely you've got people in these functional teams whose bosses or bosses' bosses will be sitting on the steering team. So again, you're trying to infiltrate across the organization to make some change. Now, any decisions that can't be made at this level, they don't feel comfortable with, they bring that to the steering team, and then the same again, if the budgets are too big, we then take that up to one of these three functional teams. We're also now deploying sales and marketing partnership teams within the world areas. The way that Emerson operates is our sales organizations are set up within each country and world area level. So we need to actually influence those on the ground. Being in a global team, and you probably had seen this before as well, the global teams like pigeons, right? Like the strategic account leaders are like pigeons. They come in, they shit all over the place, and then they fly out again, right? So we don't want to be that. So we're trying to deploy this structure to really make change in the areas where we need to. We often think of it as like, how do you influence the bag-carrying sales guy in Poland and the marketing guy in Czechoslovakia without having to go call that specific person, right? We need to use the resources, and that's why this structure is really important to help deploy that in our organization. And then obviously this allows for aligning on priorities and objectives, and then the communication is critical. I think that was mentioned earlier. If you haven't communicated a change, it's not a change, right? You haven't done anything. And then executing and communicating the value that you've provided. And I think that's where we've had a lot of success in Emerson, is just by measuring results and measuring process improvements, and then communicating them out, making sure people know what we're doing. And then every day I get new requests saying, right, we need to be a part of this. We need some support. We need you to get involved. And it's a great way to know that you're on the right track. Now, the bottom here, I've mentioned educate, inspire, and drive change. I think this, again, the team of sales enablement needs to be able to educate the organization, right? It's a very ambiguous thing, sales enablement at the moment, especially in Emerson. So you've got to help sales cut through the bullshit of marketing, and marketing cut through the bullshit of sales, right? Because people don't know what they're talking about. Right? The sales guys don't know what you mean when you're talking about MQLs or you're talking about campaigns. Marketing doesn't understand the sales processes. So you've got to have someone who can really help educate the organization. And then because it's difficult to make this change, you've got to have someone who can really inspire the organization to make that change, right? And to care about it enough to actually change. Because me sitting in my global team can't change the life of that Polish guy who's out on the street, right? It's his world that needs to be changed, right? So you need to have the people closest to him, and you need to inspire them to make that change. Okay, so that's so important to have that kind of charisma in this role. Okay, number 2 is what we've done is mapping out our gold standard process. So what are your current processes? What do you think they should be? What's the gold standard? This is where you may want to use a third-party consultant or support to say what is the best practice. But what we did is we focused on these 3 areas. So the lead management process, we dissected every step of that lead management process. We then took a kind of best practice demand waterfall model, and we've mapped that out specifically as well. And then we also mapped out our integrated sales and marketing program model. What would be the best model or process to follow in order to get an aligned sales and marketing program together? Okay, now once you've mapped those out, you can then identify the gaps and the weaknesses that you've got. So then that then becomes a bit of your priority programs, right? Your priority projects to change. And it also means that you can then identify how do you measure each of those steps. So if you're influencing and impacting part of the lead management process or the demand waterfall, they become your metrics. So at the bottom here, I've given you some of the metrics that we're measuring on a day-to-day basis. And that just shows progress. They're the kind of things you want to be communicating out when you're succeeding in these areas and driving positive change. Next up was just getting your general foundations in place. Now, it sounds trivial, this top piece, but this definitions. The amount of wasted time people have talking about what is a lead, and even people we worked with the sales enablement steering team like a year ago. That was one of the first things we did on the definitions. I still get it today, people on the actual steering team saying, oh, we still need to figure out what a lead is though. I was like, are you kidding me? So it's hard, right? We're still working through it, and there's little ways you can make them feel bad for being stupid, but you try not to be too direct. But yeah, it's hard, driving these changes, but getting your definitions in line really helps people. It takes that off the table, right? And especially we grow by acquisition quite a lot. And this helps. When you have this documented, it really helps, because when this new organization joins, you can just send them all the stuff. I had it yesterday, in fact, a new person's joined in Asia. Send me some details around lead management stuff. I sent them 3 standard decks, and that was everything they needed because the process is set. I'm not going to have the same conversation with that team about, let's decide the lead definitions again. No, that's done, right? We're good for that. Unless we want to optimize it, and we'll review it on a regular basis, and then we'll change. Next up, dashboards and metrics, right? How are you going to measure the impact that you're doing, you're making, right? This is so important, and this is where we spent a lot of time to start with as well. We use Tableau, as you'll see. Using the process maps that we did previously, you've got those now documented. Again, you can share them with the new teams and the new acquisitions that you've got just to help them understand the process. But they will help drive what should be in your dashboards. And I'm in these dashboards every day now. We have now we've focused on a lead management dashboard for sales enablement, a contact health dashboard, and a campaign dashboard. And then now there's going to be a key account focused dashboard for the sales organization. And then we're going to move the campaign tactical dashboard to more of a sales and marketing growth program dashboard. What's that look like, that sales and marketing aligned program, and how are we optimizing it? But these are really critical things to get in place so you can measure what you're doing and communicate it out. We've had times, I've sat in presentations a couple of years ago where the Middle East and Africa team would present their marketing campaign, with their really smart data on the screen, and they'd say, everything, fantastic success with this program. Next up would be the Latin America presentation, a completely different, same outcome though. Absolutely fantastic campaign, great value. As soon as you scratch beneath the surface of those campaigns, it's a load of bullshit, It's it doesn't make any sense because they're taking different data sets. And also what's worse is they've spent 2 weeks creating the chart because they had to mine the data in Excels and pull it out from different systems. So this has been a great optimization tool just to save resources. And when you want to compare programs and compare processes across world areas and business units, it's all consistent. It takes that whole topic off the table of, what does the dashboard look like? What does the campaign slide look like? You've just got something you can copy and paste and chuck it straight in, and then people will know what they're looking at. It makes a big difference. So it's worth spending the time there early on as well, so you can communicate your successes. Okay, next up is helping identify other priority projects. So we've talked about that structure that we created to start with. You've got to use that, right? You've got the leaders of the marketing and sales organization across your business units and your world areas, all on one team trying to drive change. You want to use that team to help decide what the priorities are and then help drive them, right? So what we do on an annual basis is get the teams together, either face-to-face or remotely, where we identify all of the best ideas and we prioritize them. This is a screenshot of a workshop we did 2 weeks ago. We couldn't meet face-to-face this year, so we used a tool called Mural. I'm not sure if any of you used Mural. It's a great remote collaboration tool. All these little yellow things are little post-it ideas that the sales and marketing leaders of Emerson have put together across the demand funnel. These are the ideas that we need to deploy that we think are going to make an impact across that whole sales and marketing funnel. And then obviously we cluster them into groups, and then we plot them on this difficulty importance matrix. So you really only focus on the strategic and high value projects. Okay, so now on Thursday, I'm presenting to the steering team again, and I'm going to talk to them around what are our global priorities that we're going to be focusing on the next 2 years. And then we've also, as part of this, is help people prioritize the projects for their local areas. Because again, there's going to be certain things that only this business unit really want to focus on next year, or this world area. And we don't want to force something else down their neck. We want to kind of go with them as well. So there's certain things that we'll influence globally, and then certain things that we'll just say, well, this is your priority list. And what we'll do is I'll have regular monthly calls with those teams to say, how are we getting on with your priority list? What can we do to support you? And what are you doing to drive change? And I think we've got to be that really hands-on with that, because if you don't, you won't be able to drive the change. These people are really busy. They're busy doing what they were doing before, right? Marketing leaders were busy still creating those 100 campaigns, right? They're busy creating more campaigns. So until you really put your foot down and get in there and start trying to change them and give them this priority list, that's when you're going to start driving that change for them. And obviously allocating owners and sponsors and being really rigorous on what projects have been prioritized and what projects have been actually delivered. You've got to have a really methodical way of driving that. Otherwise, it's going to get loose again and you're not going to get any change. The next thing is around continuous improvement. Okay, now, this is something that we've kind of dreamt up in the last 2 to 3 months, really. And I like to call it the 4 pillars of continuous improvement. The person in my team who owns this was trying to push back a little bit, but I think I really love this concept. So what we've said is there's going to be 4 pillars that we focus on for drive continuous improvement in sales enablement. So we're optimizing the organization. I want to create a culture change in our marketing organization that uses data to optimize our activities. So we're always doing the best we can to support sales growth. So first step is create those dashboards, right? And that now means if there are any more dashboards you need, fair enough, or enhancements to make sure that we're getting the right data points, that's still going to be an element. Then it's training and adoption. So do they have the right tools to be able to measure to use the dashboard? Do they understand it? I think one of the challenges that we've had is people love a dashboard, but not many people actually know how to use the data to make decisions. They're like, oh, it's going up, fantastic. We're doing what's going down. Look, that's really bad. But it's hard. You've got to be able to read it and know what action to take based on that. And I think our organization struggles with that, and probably many other people do as well. So the training and adoption we want to drive is helping people understand how do you take action on that data, because until you do that, the dashboard is just pretty. It's not doing anything else. And the next thing is these data insight discovery sessions we're setting up. So our team are going to drive the calls with each world area and business unit where we sit down with them and review their progress around their priority projects, around their campaigns, around their effectiveness. And we kind of almost force the conversation to use the data with them and help them decipher it. And again, this is to just try and get them to use the data. Again, if you're letting them get on with it alone, they're not going to focus. They're going to carry on doing what they did before. So we're going to kind of encourage them to actually have those conversations. We will set up those meetings with them, with the right people, and say, this is how your situation looks like. You've got a real problem of the amount of leads that you're creating. They're all getting rejected. This is how you need to change it. Or this is, all these leads are getting accepted in CRM, but then they're just getting, they're rejected at this stage. So what does that mean? And helping them drive an action plan based on that. And then the final pillar is best practices. And best practices is one of these things. I've created a best practice log before, and it does nothing, right? It just sits on a shared drive somewhere, an Excel sheet, and then no one looks at it. And we want to get away from that. So what I want to create now is create the log. We need a log of best practices, but then we'll then introduce that to create some of the agenda for the insight discovery sessions. So if Latin America has some great best practices they've just learned, we put that into the log, and we then make sure that every insight discovery session we have with the rest of the organization, we make that as part of the agenda. Hey, this is what Latin America's done. It's working great. Let's see if we can implement it on one of your next programs and put that in place. Okay. Now, in the last 1.5 years since inception of sales enablement, these are some of the results that we've had. We can't take accountability for all of it, obviously the organizer, but it's having the focus to drive these changes is having a great impact. And it's really supporting our sales teams, and our marketing teams. So I'm really seeing the value. We can do so much more as well in sales enablement. I can see the opportunity going through the roof, and I'm super excited about it, but it's already showing great results. And as I communicate these out, more and more people in our organization are coming to us saying, we want support, we want you involved. Which is great. So what's next for Emerson? This is our strategy review chart. This is kind of a high-level summary that we have for sales enablement in Emerson. I had to take out our dollar numbers, obviously, but each of these are tied to a incremental growth number that we're expecting to achieve in Emerson by deploying these areas. So contact database and quality, obviously, that's a foundational piece. And making sure we comply with GDPR and Canada CAN-SPAM and all this. Continuous improvement. Speed, so this whole lead capture qualification process, making sure we're following up with customers. Someone said earlier, B2C is impacting B2B expectations. It's so true. We now have to deliver everything in a day. Thank you very much, Amazon, because it's really, really hard, right? So we've just spent the last year transitioning to a new CRM system. So we've had a good opportunity to now overhaul that whole process and how that looks and how we can align that with our demand funnel as well, which has been a great opportunity. And then the next up is site intent monitoring. We want to be able to understand specific sites, not at the account level. When you speak to these ABM or account-based marketing companies, they're great, but they're doing it at a high level, right? So, for example, Shell, one of our customers, they'll say, Shell's doing this. And we say, well, that doesn't help us because actually there's every specific site in Shell has a different target, different focus. So I don't care what everyone in Shell cares, but I want to care what that site does. So we're going to try and create a model which takes that data of site and the specific sites, the key personas on those sites who are showing interest in certain solutions of Emerson, and how do we provide that data to our key account managers in CRM to say, this should be your agenda topics for the next meeting you have with this account, because this is what the digital footprint is showing us. And then top of the list here is our sales and marketing growth programs. We've created a whole new functionality in our CRM system now to manage these sales and marketing growth programs. So you have sales objectives, marketing objectives, and then our marketing automation tool feeds into that. And then you don't just measure campaign and leads, you measure sales objectives of a growth program. These are the marketing campaigns that support it. So sales can actually see them. And then this is what marketing's supporting with. This is what sales is actually driving. And together you can try and hit those targets rather than having them separated. So we're really excited about getting that off. And actually last week we got insight that it's this growth program functionality which is driving our North America CRM utilization, which is really exciting. This just shows that they're reaching out for this kind of stuff. So yeah. And that's what I had. Any questions? Yes? Yeah, so it was the inconsistency of where people would get. So what we've done basically is we've had a specific team to set up the Tableau dashboards and then pull in the relevant data that we believe is the data they should be looking at. Everyone's using Eloqua as our marketing automation tool. Everyone should be using CRM. So it's just that they are manipulating the data through Excel somewhere to make it look nice. But it doesn't help when you're trying to compare apples with apples. So there is a single source of data. It's just that they're being fudged somewhere, which is not helping anyone. So what we've done is we've just said, right, we're going to pull that together for you. And we'll get agreement from the steering team that that is what it should be. And then they become the dashboards of choice. So the data was inconsistent because people made it inconsistent to tell a different story. That's it. Yeah.
Thanks. Really insightful. I've got two questions. The first one, how do you manage decisions within your global team? So it seems to be a whole bunch of people.
Yep.
And the second one is, do you mirror that setup into your local businesses in different countries?
Sure. So what we do is, I can't go back, is the decisions are made at the steering team and we have a vote. We use WebEx, Cisco WebEx, and we have a voting system on there. So I actually force everyone to vote on any major ideas because we don't want decisions being made that people don't agree with or they aren't going to implement themselves. So we actually force a voting system and that gets logged. And that really makes people wake up to it. And deploying it locally, that's a bit of a transition. So this last workshop I did 2 weeks ago, the output of that was, what are the priorities per world area and per business unit? That's going to drive those more local conversations. And I also mentioned this sales and marketing partnership teams. In Europe is the only place we've got them right now, but that's going to be really in the world area. What are their priorities driven locally by their own European team? So we're going to try and have that hub-spoke model where we have similar decisions and discussions happening elsewhere. Yeah, it's the only way I think it's hard to influence all of those areas, but yeah. Couple of quick questions, okay. What's causing the issues of the weak consistent database? The weak and consistent contact database is, it's historic. It's always been terrible since I've seen it in the past. I don't think we had the right processes in place to capture data correctly. I think that through acquisitions, we just had loads of data just come in. We just acquired part of GE, and they've just dumped in 50% extra contacts into our database with no data filled in. So that's just, my team member hates it because her charts were looking fantastic and now they look terrible because her field completeness has gone down. So I think it's a multitude of things, but now we're getting our act together and things are getting much more better. Which CRM did you recently move to and why? We moved to Oracle Sales Cloud because we were on Oracle CRM. We're an Oracle. We love Oracle in Emerson, so we probably have the best discount models in Oracle. So we go with Oracle, right or wrong, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you who I prefer, but yep, that's why I moved to Oracle. So how do you decide actually based on insight discovery? Okay, so the insight discovery sessions are, you use the data to tell you what the actions should be. All right, so you're saying, okay, what are your top priority programs in your area of the business? How are they operating? Okay, are you working on the right things? Are the tactics you're doing being effective? Are the steps of the demand funnel, is there any breakdowns in that process? In the lead handoff, is there any breakdowns in that process? You follow all of those metrics that you created in those standard processes early on, and then you dissect them and say, okay, well, this looks terrible. Look at your demand funnel. I mean, Middle East and Africa for us is a great example. We have a telesalesperson who helps follow up on leads. So the number of marketing qualified leads is huge that have been accepted and qualified in our CRM system. And then the funnel goes to zero because the sales organization just doesn't pick them up afterwards. Now, there's many reasons for that, but it tells a story and it means that we can now dissect it and figure out why and then work with the right teams in Middle East and Africa to implement the right programs. So we use the data to decide on what the action items should be. I mean, it's not perfect, but we're getting closer. Yeah.
You showed some pretty impressive aggregate results there, improvements. I'm just wondering, do any world areas of business units benefited, or have they benefited more so than others? What do you see as the reasons for that?
So North America has benefited a lot from the work we've done on the Contacts Health database. I think that's because they had a lot of the companies that we've used to append data and the focus that we've had on that has been more North America focused. We've invested more heavily in that area. So that's driven the focus. Other parts of the organization, it really is where you've got local teams who have drunk the Kool-Aid, right? And who have said, yep, we need to get sales enablement support. We need to drive change. We're doing that in pockets. When you see an area that is willing to change, you kind of focus on that and say, right, let's help them then, because they're ready to change now. So for example, Middle East and Africa was a good one now. So we're now having a specific workshop for Middle East and Africa to help them figure out how do we get this. They have the most leads out of Emerson in Middle East and Africa, funnily enough. And we're a North American company, right? So they're doing something. I don't know whether they're good leads yet, but they see the opportunity that they can grow if they do something better with them, to manage those leads better. So it does seem to be where you've got people who are more focused and want to make change, you focus on there first, and that seems to work. Okay. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you.